This video is part of a series of videos that I am publishing about my attending the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights briefing on language access for individuals with limited English proficiency. If you want to see all of the videos in this series, please go to this video's description down right below the video, and you should be able to find the links to the other videos as well as a link to a playlist that contains all of the videos. It has been a very long time since I've posted anything on my YouTube channel, and I actually just went to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights briefing about language access for individuals with limited English proficiency, or LEP, this past Friday, March 21st. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this, and I originally started off with 15 pages of notes. I was literally typing the blow by blow. I was there all day from like 9:30 in the morning until like 5 o'clock p.m. So I did my best to condense my notes. I am not going to give you every single little detail. You can actually watch the full recording. I believe they live streamed it on their YouTube channel, so I will be providing the link to that in my video description. However, this is designed to be kind of like a briefer, by how much, I'm not quite sure, but a briefer version of kind of like what went on, what I think is important to interpreters and translators, because a lot of stuff is changing here in the United States when it comes to language access. You all have likely heard that there was an executive order passed declaring English as the official language of the United States, which effectively rescinds Executive Order 13166, not to be confused with Order 66, which ordered the extermination of the Jedi. But this all is very relevant to us. And it kind of seems to me, and this was said at multiple points during this briefing, that they're really trying to get as much feedback from subject matter experts as possible. Because with the rescission, I learned that word recently, the fact that Executive Order 13166 was rescinded, it's no longer a thing, it actually took away 25 years of language access guidance. So we still have Title VI and Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, but Executive Order 13166 really talks about the how of language access. So rescinding all that guidance, basically the Department of Justice is going to eventually issue new guidance, and it seems like they really wanted feedback from the public. So first, a little bit about the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. So they are actually a nonpartisan commission. So what does that mean? That means that they are required to have a certain percentage of each of the U.S.'s major political parties on this commission of 8 people. And there is actually also an independent, a person whose political association is independent, if I'm not mistaken, which was Gail. So for more information on the commissioners, there will also be a link in the description of this video. But first, I'm going to kind of go over the agenda and how the whole thing was kind of structured. Like I said, it lasted from, technically, it was supposed to start at 10 a.m. until about, it was supposed to last until like 4 or something p.m. It ended up ending at like 3:45 to 4. But I ended up staying and talking, because talking is what I do for a living, with a couple of the commissioners after the fact. So going to the agenda, they were supposed to start off with introductory remarks at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I live about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from DC, and so I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to go up to DC and I'm going to be there for this. I don't want to watch the dang live stream. I almost said something. They didn't really offer an opportunity for people to say anything during the meeting, the briefing, which wasn't very brief. But there were a couple of moments where I almost said something, but I didn't because I wasn't supposed to. Anyways, so you were supposed to have introductory remarks starting at 10, and then they had a couple of different panels. So they actually had 4 separate panels. Each panel was comprised of about anywhere from like 2 to 5 people. So the panels were overview of the current language access landscape. Okay, what do things look like in the United States in terms of language access? Panel 2 was language access in government services and healthcare. Then we had lunch. That wasn't a panel. And then panel 3 was from the field, community advocates' views on language access. And then panel 4 was from the field, the lived experiences of individuals with limited English proficiency. That's probably the only one that I'm not going to condense too much. You can, of course, watch their testimony, but I kind of picked out the greatest hits, what I thought were the most relevant to us as linguists, as interpreters and translators. But the whole thing started off really, really spicy. I was shaking, honestly. So at 9:36, so the briefing's not supposed to start until 10. At 9:36, they're like, okay, we're calling the meeting. The meeting is starting. And I'm like, wait, what? And apparently they had received a communication from the White House the previous evening that a particular person should be heading the meeting, okay, which was Kirstenau. So apparently Trump appointed Kirstenau, I believe. So Kirstenau is, the full name is Peter Kirstenau, okay, as the chair on January 20th. And this appears to be against how the commission typically works. Usually an administration just doesn't come in and just kind of force through someone as a new chair. They all have terms. So Peter Kirstenau was a Bush-era appointee, so he wasn't appointed by Trump, but J. Christian Adams is a Trump appointee and was honestly pretty aggressive at the beginning of the meeting. And I was like, oh, great, this meeting isn't even going to happen. There was some back and forth. Mondaire Jones, who is a Democrat, so for those of you who might not be based in the U.S., Trump is a Republican. The other party is Democrat. So Mondaire Jones was a Democrat. He's like, okay, well, there are statutes for removal of a chair, but the standard is dereliction of duty and malfeasance. So that it basically says that the statutes of the commission say that you can't remove someone unless they've done something wrong. And so Rochelle Garza, who is also a Democrat, is the chair. And she was basically like, you know what? All of this aside, the president can't just come in and be like, there's a new chair. I'm still the chair. We're going to continue this meeting. So the briefing then officially begins at 10:05 a.m. So I'm already shaking before this thing starts. So they give some brief announcements, that the day before, on March 20th, was the anniversary of the landmark Supreme Court case, Lau versus Nichols, which established language access as a civil right. And then Garza starts off by criticizing the executive order declaring English as the official language of the United States. And she criticizes that it rescinds the requirement for federal agencies to provide language assistance. Okay. And then Adams, I already don't like Adams at this point. Listen, the work we do is inherently political, and a lot of the things that this administration is doing is disproportionately negatively affecting the communities that I serve. Adams comes in and is like, I'm going to offer an alternate perspective. He claims that non-citizens are registering to vote. Now, if we know anything about kind of the rhetoric in the political sphere these days, there are some pretty outrageous claims that voter fraud is so widespread that it's such an issue, and this is being used as a pretext to limit voting rights for many people, including married women, by the way. So this is not a fact. Yes, sure, there are definitely non-citizens who have registered to vote, but this is not a widespread issue.